A family lunch ended with 3 people dead. There was no struggle, no weapon, and no, it wasn't violence, at least not in the way we usually think about it. It was mushrooms. This is the case behind Erin Patterson, the death cap mushroom murders, explained clearly and straight to the point. 4 people sat down for what should have been a normal family meal. Within days, 3 of them were dead. Doctors later confirmed the cause of death was death cap mushroom poisoning, one of the most lethal toxins found in nature. And the person who prepared the meal, well, she didn't get sick at all. That one detail would shape everything that followed. The victims were Don Patterson, 70 years old, the host's father-in-law. Don was a retired school teacher widely respected for his impact on students. He died in the hospital after receiving an unsuccessful liver transplant. Gail Patterson, 70 years old, the host's mother-in-law, remembered as a respected community member and retired educator who died 5 days after the meal due to multi-organ failure. Heather Wilkinson, 66 years old, Gail's sister and a local teacher. Her husband described her as a beautiful and humble person full of love and patience. She died alongside her sister and brother-in-law. Ian Wilkinson, 68 years old, Heather's husband and a local Baptist pastor. He was the sole survivor of the meal, spending 2 months fighting for his life in intensive care, with multiple organ failure before making a remarkable recovery. The host of the lunch was Erin Patterson, a 50-year-old Australian woman. She remained healthy and doing great. That stark contrast quietly directed the investigation. The meal itself included individual beef Wellingtons. Not long after eating, the guests became violently ill. The symptoms were brutal: vomiting, liver failure, and a rapid deterioration of their organs. Death cap mushrooms are insidious. They don't always act immediately. Sometimes the symptoms can ease for a little while, creating a false hope, a dangerous illusion of recovery. But then, the damage returns, far more severe than before. By the time full organ failure sets in, treatment options are incredibly limited. For 3 of the guests, medical intervention simply came too late. This wasn't a sudden event. It was slow, and it was lethal. This is where the case shifted from a devastating tragedy to a full-blown criminal investigation. Accidental death cap mushroom poisonings are rare. Deliberate ones are even rarer. Investigators weren't just looking for a single mistake in foraging or cooking. They were searching for intent. Prosecutors later pointed to a number of inconsistencies in Erin Patterson's explanations for what happened. They examined digital evidence, including her online activity and phone data, which was presented in court as part of the prosecution's case. They also focused on food preparation equipment, specifically a dehydrator that was linked to the mushrooms used in the meal. Now, none of this evidence, on its own, was a smoking gun, but when you put it all together, it started to form a pattern. And in cases like this, patterns matter. Erin Patterson was arrested and charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder for the surviving guest, Ian Wilkinson. She pleaded not guilty to all charges. At trial, the jury heard weeks of complex and detailed evidence. Experts testified, explaining exactly how death cap toxins work, how incredibly unlikely an accidental contamination of this scale would be, and how the mushrooms could have been prepared and served. The defense argued that this was all just a tragic accident, a terrible mistake with irreversible and heartbreaking consequences. But the prosecution argued something very different. They argued that the poisoning was deliberate, that it required specific knowledge, and that, most importantly, it required intent. The jury agreed with the prosecution. Netflix presents this case as shocking, and it absolutely is. But what is easy to miss in the sensationalism is how undramatic the reality of the crime actually was. There were no raised voices, no visible violence, no obvious warning signs leading up to it. It was just a family meal, prepared quietly, served normally. Poisoning cases don't look dangerous on the surface. They look ordinary, and that's precisely what makes them so deeply unsettling. This wasn't an act of chaos. It was an act of control. In July 2025, Erin Patterson was found guilty of murdering Don and Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson, and of attempting to murder Ian Wilkinson. In September of that year, she was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a reported minimum non-parole period of 33 years. As with many major convictions, the legal process does allow for appeals, but for now, the verdict stands. This case unsettled people because it felt so familiar. A family lunch, a home-cooked meal, a normal day, until it wasn't. It's a chilling reminder that murder cases don't always look like chaotic crime scenes. Sometimes, they simply just look like dinner. Before we wrap this case up, we remember Don and Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson, 3 lives lost, and people who deserve to be remembered for more than how they died. If you appreciate murder cases explained clearly, without the hype and sensationalism, you're in the right place. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll stick around for the next one.